Get ready to hop back on the carousel, Broncos country, because the ride never ends. Everybody has talked about the quarterback carousel that the Denver Broncos were on ever since Peyton Manning's retirement. That finally seems to have come to a halt with the arrival of Bo Nix. But the Broncos are still riding another carousel and have been riding it for pretty much the same amount of time as they have been riding the quarterback carousel. And they continue to once again have to search the desert for a new punter. Bringing in this tweet here from Ian Rappaport, Punter News. Broncos punter Riley Dixon is going to the Bucs as they've agreed to terms. He gets a 2-year, $6 million deal. That is just great. The Broncos have to find yet another punter. And this has been a problem for the Broncos ever since they decided to move on from Britton Colquitt after the 2015 season. They had drafted Riley Dixon in the 7th round out of Syracuse in the 2016 draft. Colquitt and Dixon had a camp competition, but come on, the guy who got drafted most recently is probably going to have the inside track to win the competition, even if you're moving on from the better player in Britton Colquitt. Colquitt was cut. He had a very fruitful career after he left Denver, and the Broncos have been struggling to find stability at punter. Dixon was way too inconsistent for the Broncos in his first 2 seasons, so they decided to go and get an upgrade at that position, and one became available as Marquette King had just been cut by John Gruden and the Raiders. They bring him in, and be it due to issues with the coaching staff or issues with King himself, that just never worked out here. He ended up getting injured after Tom McMahon made him change his kicking style. He was clashing with local media. It just was never a good fit for King here in Denver. He lasted 4 games before he eventually got cut. Colby Wadman came in, finished out that 2018 season. He was the punter in 2019 as well, was one of the worst punters in the NFL. They bring in Sam Martin, and it looked like, okay, they finally have some more stability here at the punter position. And then they find Corliss Waitman under special teams coordinator Dwayne Stukes in 2022. And Sam Martin was a really effective punter for the Broncos, but Waitman had been bombing balls in training camp, and the Broncos figured, all right, we can roll with the young kid, and we can end up saving a couple $1 million that way. Well, that did not work out. Corliss Waitman was one of the worst punters in the NFL for the Broncos in 2022. So they go out and they re-sign Riley Dixon when Sean Payton comes in and he brings Mike Westhoff and Ben Kotwika to run the special teams unit. And in Riley Dixon's second tour of duty here in Denver, once again, it was marred with inconsistency. When you look at the numbers, net average, inside the 20 percentage, etc., Dixon was a league average punter, so he was perfectly competent at that position. He was an adequate punter for the Denver Broncos, but he was inconsistent. There were times where he would outkick his coverage. There were times where he wouldn't place the ball right and it would roll into the end zone for a touchback, and he even would kick the ball out of bounds occasionally. So I can understand Broncos country's level of frustration with a guy like Riley Dixon, but I also should warn you that things could get a lot worse. There is a punter who is available on the open market that has ties to the state of Colorado that could, in theory, at least maybe be an upgrade over Riley Dixon, at least in the eyes of some fans, but I don't know, man. I think things could get a lot worse, and the decision to let Riley Dixon walk in free agency could be one that comes back to haunt the Broncos. I'm hinting at Ryan Stonehouse here. He is the former CSU Rams punter who spent the last several seasons with the Tennessee Titans. I do believe that Ryan Stonehouse is a very good punter, but there is some risk, and it's kind of the same type of risk that the Broncos took with the other free agents that they brought in Dre Greenlaw and Talanoa Hufanga. They both were coming off of serious injuries, and unfortunately, the same is true for Ryan Stonehouse. Stonehouse had suffered a torn ACL in the back half of the 2023 season when he got his plant leg run into by a gunner. It was a really disgusting looking injury, and Stonehouse really kind of struggled to bounce back from that injury in terms of just being back to his normal self. He was still a really solid punter. He was, but he wasn't the same punter that he was before the injury. I want to go ahead and bring in Stonehouse's numbers from the 2024 season. And all of them were down. His gross yards per punt, 50.6, that's still decent, but his net yards per punt was all the way down at 38.3, which was a significant drop-off from 2023 pre-injury. His touchback percentage, that went down, so I guess you could say that was, in theory, a good thing, but his inside the 20 percentage, which is really what you are paying your punter to do, to pin your opponent inside the 20, his inside the 20 percentage dropped by over 20%. That's concerning and a bit of a red flag to me. I've heard special teams players say that the kicking leg is honestly something you'd rather get injured than the plant leg if you're a punter. You do not want your plant leg to get hurt because it can screw up your ability to be able to drive energy off of your kicks, and it can just really screw you. So I'm concerned that that injury to his plant leg may have brought Ryan Stonehouse's production down a bit here in 2024. Maybe in another year coming off of the injury, he'll be better, but let's go ahead and look at Riley Dixon's numbers from last year for comparison. He had a higher net yards per punt average and a higher inside the 20 percentage. So Riley Dixon was actually the better punter than Ryan Stonehouse last year, and I gotta be honest, man, there's some risk here with signing Stonehouse that this move could blow up in the Broncos' face. I will also say that if the Broncos do re-sign or do sign Ryan Stonehouse, then he's going to have to grow out his hair back, man. That hair was epic at CSU, and he ended up cutting it for some stupid reason. He's going to have to grow that hair back if he wants to come here to Denver. But in all seriousness, Broncos country, Riley Dixon was the better punter than Ryan Stonehouse last year, and I do caution you that things could get a lot worse at the punter position than Riley Dixon. I do trust the Broncos' new special teams brass with Darren Rizzi to get that decision right, but it might take some time, and we might go through another year wandering through the desert trying to find a good punter here in Denver before they finally find somebody who stabilizes the position long term. Alright guys, be sure to leave a like on this video as well, subscribe and ring the bell so these videos appear in your notification feed. I would really appreciate it, guys. Those are both free and easy ways to show your support. It helps tell YouTube's algorithm to push us out, and it helps us get seen by more and more members of Broncos country just like you and me. And until next time, guys, I'm your host, Gage Madrid, saying peace out, and we will see you guys at the next free agent move.